recording, we're zooming this as well, Coach Kelly.
Okay.
All right, folks, thank you for being here. This is the first of 2 press conferences we'll have today. Open up the floor right now for Coach Chip Kelly. Andy Anders, 11 Warriors.
Notre Dame mixes in a lot of man coverage, probably heavier than other teams you guys have played recently. Just are you guys, get you excited to get your receivers in those matchups and see that look against Notre Dame?
Yeah, Al Golden does a great job at that defense. They mix and match their coverages. I think they're one of the top pass defenses in the country, and it shows. And I think they're really well coordinated. Their front and their back end work really, really well together, and that's a challenge that we're going to have on Monday night.
Folks, we do have a number of people on Zoom as well that I'm going to try to get to, so I'm going to have to limit you to one question, at least for starters. Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Chip, when you looked back at the Texas game, what were they doing in your more technical eyes to kind of cut down on what Jeremiah was able to do? Obviously, Carnell got free a couple times, but just what was successful about Texas's secondary?
Yeah, I think they rolled some things to Jeremiah, to try to take him away. There's some bracket coverages and guy inside, guy outside, guy over the top. And Will did a great job of diagnosing what they were doing, and I think Carnell had a huge game for us. Mech had 5, Carnell had 7. I thought the tight ends, the combination of G and Will did a great job. And then obviously the back out of the backfield. So the beauty of what we have here is that we have more than one weapon. So I think the quarterback has to make really good decisions on what they're trying to take away and then adjust accordingly. And I think Will did a really good job of that.
So Austin Moore, podcast.
Chip, did you say that you gave Will a hard time over the headset after he tripped on the fourth down run?
I could have.
You don't have to tell me what you said. How much is that? Can you normally lighten the mood? Is it always just a play call straight in? What are the communications like?
It
because
depends.
he can't respond.
He can't respond, so I can say whatever I want. It's kind of like being married. It's reversed.
That's not my experience, yeah.
Reversed. So
Do you take that opportunity much to maybe ever lighten the mood, or?
it all depends on the situation. I can't really pinpoint one thing or another. That was a huge play for us. It was 4th and 2. We had to convert, keep the drive alive. I talked to him, but it wasn't the next play. It was, in between series, we had an opportunity to chat about that. So because we still had to go down and score. So.
Thanks. Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, hold on. I got to finish texting his wife. What he just said. Big picture. Are you happy for what's happened to Ryan Day after what he's gone through? You guys are friends. You guys are close. Just can you speak to? I know coaches sign up for the deal.
Yeah.
But you got to be really happy for him.
Yeah, I am, and I think the one thing that, knowing him for so long, I'm not surprised. I told him a long time ago he was built for this. He understands the gravity of what you have to do to be a head coach here, and I think he's handled it tremendously. He's the same person every day. I think the consistency and how he shows up here every day and what his mission is and how he drives this entire program, coaches, people in the building, players, whatever, is very, very evident, and we get a chance to play one more game, and that's what the mantra had been since the last game of the regular season. We got to keep this group together, and everything he's talked about since that day, we've done. So, we got to continue it.
Do you sense a load off his shoulders? I mean, and did you see after?
No.
Okay.
I do not sense any load off his shoulders right now. Maybe ask me that question next Tuesday, but I do not sense any load off of his shoulders right now. No.
Far left, Whitney Harding, WCMH.
Chip, you mentioned the tight ends. You guys have been using that 12 personnel a little bit. What do you like about that, and how important is that going to be against a very physical defense like Notre Dame has?
Yeah, I think it depends on how the other team deploys when you put that in the game. So there's always a response to, we put a personnel grouping in, they have an opportunity to match that personnel. They have an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to play it in this grouping. And then do we think that matchup is favorable to us or is it favorable to them? So, I think when you look at how Notre Dame does it, they're good, and I think that would be an interesting matchup along with our 11 personnel and along with some of our other personnel groupings. And that's part of the game that goes on within a game. So, but we'll see how they decide that they're going to handle it. And then if it's how we thought it was going to be, then maybe we'll continue that. But if it may not be what we thought it was going to be, and then we say, all right, then that's not probably a personnel grouping we're going to use today.
Stephen Means, Cleveland ESPN.com.
You guys have been rotating Luke, Austin, and Tegra at those guard spots for the first 2 games. I think Luke played every snap at left guard. Just seeing him in extended snaps, how do you think he graded out?
I think Luke did a really nice job. I think part of the rotation part was Austin was banged up a little bit. So, how much could we get from him? And he's a warrior and gave us everything he had. So those decisions on the reps of what we're going to do with those guys will be based upon, where's our health when we get to next Sunday and Monday when we start to talk about depth. But I thought Luke, with extended playing snaps, did a really, really nice job.
Don Taveri, WBMS.
Coach, they pride themselves on defense, ranked second in the country behind Ohio State. Just how big of a challenge is it? And when you have a defense, you can be in a game, can't you?
Yeah, obviously. And I think both teams have proven that, and that's why we're here. But they do an outstanding job, and they've got some real veteran leaders. Cross and Kaiser, I think, have been there. This is year 6 for both those guys. Watson, the secondary, has been around for a long time. So they've got depth, up front, second level, and third level. They're really smart. You can watch their communication that goes on during the play, and you can see how in tune they are to what the coaching staff is asking them to do. So that's a huge challenge for us on Monday, going up against a really, really well-coached defense that has some really, really good players that have played a lot of football. I think both teams have guys that have played a lot of football, and that experience has shown through the playoffs.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
When you see Will make the mistake they made on the first drive of the second half, trying to get the ball to Jeremiah, is that like an aggressive mistake for Will? And when you're trying to get the ball to Jeremiah and trying to involve your best player, like you're not excusing something like that, but is there almost like, okay, like we were trying to get the ball there, like we kind of understand why he did what he did?
Yeah, he just didn't see the linebacker underneath in the coverage. He read the top of the coverage really well. He didn't see the underneath part of the coverage. So we discuss it just like we normally do between each series about what just transpired and then what are we going to do next. And, the one thing about Will is he owns everything he does. Because if you don't own it, then you're going to make the same mistake again because you don't realize how you did it. And he knew right away. He just didn't see the linebacker. He felt like the top of the coverage was deep enough, and Jeremiah had pushed them off where he could throw that ball into him, but he didn't spot the underneath coverage. So, it's something he'll learn from, and hopefully the one thing I love about Will is usually doesn't make the same mistake twice. So, let's hope he has that out of his system.
Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Chip, they obviously came into the season probably one of the best corners in the country, Ben Morrison, and he's been out for the year. But Leonard Moore stepped up pretty well against Penn State. So I'm just curious your thoughts on him and what that whole secondary does.
Yeah, I think the whole secondary, you look at how much man they play, and the reason they do it is because they can, and no one's really exploited that with them. So I think they all can cover. So it's not like, well, just stay away from him and throw against this guy. I think all of them are really, really skilled. And I think how coordinated it is with the whole group, that they all have an understanding of where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, and they do a really good job with it. So I know they did lose a corner early in the season, but they've seemed to just continue to roll on defense, and the statistics will show you that.
Dave Holmes, WSYX.
Yeah, Chip, all year when you're prepping a game, there's another game, 7 more games down the road. This is the last one, win or lose. I'm curious, does that change anything in preparation, play design, snap distribution? Is there anything different about knowing that you have no games left after this one?
That's a good question. I don't think we've talked about that one yet, but we certainly don't save things going into games saying, hey, this is a really good deal. Let's not run it because we want to run it 3 or 4 games down the road, because you don't know who you're going to have and what you're going to do. You make your decisions based upon the personnel that's available that week, and then what's going to help you win that football game. And those are the same decisions that are being made now. So snap count going into a game, we don't really talk about that. The only time that ever comes up is when you're up and you're starting to think about substituting. So if the score is 42-7 in the third, when are we going to get Donnie out, and when are we going to get Seth out? Because you'd hate to lose a guy when the score's 42-7, in a game, because we do have multiple games to play after that. But that's the only time we've really talked about that.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
After the game, Ryan, talking about that screen, said it was something that was so far from his mind, he's not even sure why you guys even practiced it. What went into the decision to dial that up there in that situation?
Well, honestly, there was 29 seconds to go in the first half, and we were on our 25-yard line. So let's see if we can get something here on the first play. If we can, then we'll get into 2-minute mode. But if we can't, then you're probably going to take a knee and go in at halftime. So we thought it was a safe play to run and see if we could pop something. And obviously it worked. But it worked because Trey's a pretty good player. So if you can get him into open spaces like we did, he can stick his foot in the ground and get north and south really, really fast.
Noah Weiskopf, the Lantern.
How have you seen Jeremiah respond to the game that he had? And what do you think that says about just his maturity at his age?
Yeah, he's been great. We practiced yesterday, and he was flying around, excited about the opportunity to go play in a national championship. So he's always a forward-looking guy. What's next? What's the next challenge? And what do we, what do we get to do? And that's kind of what his mindset has been like. And that does speak to his maturity because he's always, what's the next challenge? And I think that's one of the things I love about him.
Over to the right, Adam King, WBNS.
Kind of twofold. What was your reaction to Jack's
He said
touchdown?
one.
Okay, sorry. What was your reaction to Jack's touchdown?
Oh, just excited. I mean, in that situation to be where that drive was, it's first and goal from the 1, after back-to-back penalties. And then, you're in a one-score game and they're tying it up. And we're talking about when we get the ball back, how much time is left on the clock, and then what can we do in regulation. And then for that whole series of plays, just kind of watching them unfold and what happened. But for Jack and the impact that he has on this program, and to see that whole thing kind of just out, it was kind of a storybook happening right in front of you. But it was anytime our defense can score or we can return punts for touchdowns, offensive guys get really excited.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
How much, or if at all, have you watched last year's game against Notre Dame? And if
We
so,
watched it, yeah.
Is there anything they did in their coverage of Marvin, because he only had 3 catches that game, that would be applicable to how they might try to take away Jeremiah?
I don't think we looked at it that way, but we looked at that game and then we looked at every game they've played this year. So, they've played man in every game they've played. So it's not like they're doing something special in one game over another game. So, and they've played some good receivers. There's some teams they played that have some really talented receivers, and they've done a great job against everybody, whether it's Louisville, SC, people that throw the ball all over the place. They still have done a great job in coverage, and the numbers will tell you that. So we got to be prepared for all coverages. And that's the other thing they do. They don't just play one coverage. So, they're going to mix it up. They try to keep you off balance. They try to keep the quarterback guessing. They bring different blitzes and attack your pressures in a really good manner. I think Al's background as an NFL guy, being with the Lions and being with the Bengals has really shown there's a lot of NFL concepts that he's running there, and their players do a great job of adjusting on the fly too. So, because people try to confuse them and line up in different formations and move and things like that, and they always seem to sort it out. So.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Chip, there's like this narrative out there that I've heard from people that Ohio State wouldn't be here if they didn't lose to Michigan. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that the Michigan game woke you guys up or got you motivated or made you angry. Do you agree with that, or do you think that's nonsense?
I've learned a long time ago as a coach that I'm not into narratives. So, I think we live in a week-to-week world, and that's how we've always approached things. And I think our week-to-week is just, it's the beginning of the week, and what do we do on a Monday? What's a Monday look like? What's a Tuesday look like? What's a Wednesday look like? How's your preparation? All those other things. Then you go play the game, and you got about 20 hours to adjust to what happened, whether it was a win or whether it was a loss, and then you move on to the next game. So the narrative part of it isn't something I think coaches really talk about, that this set up that, set up this. That's, you guys are the experts at writing narratives. We're just trying to get a first down. So I don't look at that from that perspective. So.
All right, we're going to pause locally and we're going to meld into the World Wide Web and take a few calls on Zoom. Let's open up with Dan Tortora. Dan?
Coach, the decision to come over to Ohio State, just reflecting on that hindsight 2020 and what you can say about this experience and the opportunity that presented itself from Coach Day.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And I think just really you think about as a coach the day-to-day, so your ability to what it's like every day you're in the Woody and to be with this staff and everybody that's in this building, and then to be around these players on a daily basis is it's what's made this thing really, really special. So excited that we get an opportunity to be together for one more week, because this is an extremely close-knit group. I think the connection from the players to the coaches and players to players, coaches to coaches is really kind of special, and one of the reasons that we've had the success that we've had. So we're going to enjoy these last couple of days here in the Woody and then get on a plane and go to Atlanta and play a game on Monday night.
We'll go to Kirk Bowles. Kirk?
Yeah, Chip, on the Jeremiah Smith thing, I don't know if your game plan called for him to be a All-American decoy, or did Texas just do anything special to take him out of your offense?
Yeah, Pete and his staff did a really good job on the defensive side of some bracket coverages on Jeremiah, and I think Will really recognized it. That's why Carnell had a bigger game. Our tight ends were really involved. Emeka was really involved. The running back was involved. So, that's the one thing about here is we have more than one weapon at our skill positions. So, quarterback's got to figure out what they're doing and then take advantage of it. I thought Will did a really good job with that.
Lane Higgins from the Wall Street Journal. Lane?
Hey there, Coach. One of the things I wanted to know is about Coach Brian Hartline, and obviously it's clear that he has been an exceedingly good position coach and asset to the offense, but one of the things that he has done really well is just develop these guys, regardless of whether they're coming in as a 4 or 5 star recruit, he's sort of able to pull more out of them. So, given that you've been around many different types of position coaches in your time, what does Coach Hartline do that's different or that makes him so good at that specific aspect of his job?
Yeah, I think whatever the word is that's better than really, really good is what Brian is. So he's as good a coach as I've been around in all aspects. He can do it all. He can recruit. He can develop players. He can put together a game plan. His knowledge in the passing game is outstanding, and we really lean on him a lot in terms of what we're doing from a pass standpoint. But his ability to develop players, what he demands from them in individual drills, how he can explain to our players how you can apply what you're doing in individual drills to the game itself, and then watch that manifest itself is really special. But I think Brian is an outstanding football coach, and really fortunate that I got a chance to work with him this year.
And our final Zoom call question, Tony Erdman, Buckeye Huddle.
Yep, with regards to, you guys have been planning for 16 or 17 games since even before you arrived. When you did arrive, how quickly was that made to your attention in terms of like the running game, and how do you think Trey and Quinchon have operated in this split system, because they both look as fresh as they did against Akron?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it from the beginning, what our long-term plan was because of how long the season was going to be, and really didn't have any evidence at the college level because at the FBS level, you never played this many games because there was never a 4-game playoff for you to get to the championship game. So, we talked about this being a long season and how do we do that. That was the reason they went out and recruited Q, and he got here before I got here. But how do you distribute the carries between those guys? And they're eerily close in yardage right now. I don't know the exact difference between the two of them, but it's pretty close. I know it was 1 yard going into the Texas game. So, but both those guys are fresh. You're going to need all weapons. You're going to need all hands on deck. We knew this was going to be a battle of attrition, these 16, playing a 16-game schedule. Obviously, we've lost a few guys in Seth and Jimmy, and just like everybody else. But the core of our guys are still here, and they're going to be fresh when we play on Monday.
All right, back to Columbus. Joe Nugent, WCMH.
On Donnie, he did not allow any pressures against Texas. How much progress has he made since early November to now at left tackle?
Yeah, Donnie's done I think really been an unsung hero there in terms of what he's done, because switching from guard to tackle is not as easy as I think maybe some people think it is. It's a totally different game. A lot of times you're out there on an island by yourself. You're also protecting the quarterback's backside, because Will is a right-handed quarterback, so that left tackle position is critical for us. But from where he stepped in and what he did, he's been outstanding, and I think he was he was the offensive player of the game. Him and Trey, they shared that award this past week against Texas. So, in this building, we recognize what he's done and how he's continued to develop. But I think it speaks to his leadership and his whole mission of why he came back here and how unselfish he is, and that permeates through the whole offensive line and throughout the entire offense. And I think we all look at Donnie as our leader on this side of the ball.
Stefan Kreisny, Cleveland.com.
You're talking about the 4th and 2 run earlier. How big was that play right before with G to gain a couple extra yards? How much did that affect the way you could call that next play?
Yeah, it puts it in a whole different perspective. So, are you punting? If you're incomplete on that, or then if it's 4th and 5, it's definitely a different play call than what we had an opportunity to call. So when you get into 4th and 2, you have the ability to run it or throw it. to potentially pick up the first down. So that was big. And I think sometimes you look at games and look at plays that are, sometimes they go unnoticed. But his effort, because he got hit, and the yards he made after contact to put it into 4th and 2 was huge. But that's G, and he's done everything since I've been here to just whatever it takes for us to win a game, and whatever role you want me to play, I'll play it. And again, one of those senior leaders that has really stepped up in a critical situation.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Chip, last couple of games, there's been a little uptick for Quinshon in yards after contact. Hit that nice block on the ball you got to Travion. He was kind of ping-ponging off people on those touchdowns he scored. What does his physicality bring to your offense? And I guess what's it say about him that he's bringing that mentality even though he's not getting the ball 25 times a game?
Yeah, and I think he's brought it all year long like that. You look at the run he had in the Marshall game, with the unblocked linebacker, comes to mind right away, and a couple of the other physical runs that, where he's set the tone, and I think our players kind of expect that from him, whether he's blocking or whether he's carrying the football. But you got to have a physicality, and to win the whole thing, you're not going to win it by being a passive group, and I think it just sets the tone and shows everybody else that, what those guys are going to do. You look at his block on Trey's run on that play on Friday night against Texas was reminiscent of the block that Trey had for him against Penn State. I think that it speaks volumes to both those guys that whether they're blocking for each other or they're carrying the football in a critical situation down in the red zone, we can count on their physicality and that they're going to deliver a blow to the defense, whether it's as a blocker or as a ball carrier.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Chip, when you just evaluate what Will's done this season as a whole, what's impressed you most about what he's done to get you guys to this point?
I think his leadership and how he's grown into that role organically. Obviously, almost everybody on offense besides Q and him were already here, and so to come in and just go to work, and I think the players respected his work ethic and the time he put in, and they watched him grow and develop, and the football player he was when they first saw him in the spring to the football player that he is right now. You can see him growing in leaps and bounds. He fit in great with all of his teammates, but they noticed the things behind closed doors, how hard he works at the game, how much he studies football, how he puts ourselves and gives us an opportunity, because he handles a lot of checks for us, and we do a lot of things at the line of scrimmage because he can have that on his plate and he can handle it. And I think his decision-making has really allowed us to do a lot of different things, both run and pass-wise in games. So watching him continue each week we can put more on his plate. And so we're never going to be a play behind because he can put us in the right situation. Has really been a joy as a coach to watch him do that.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
When you guys lost Josh and Seth, most people probably thought you guys were in a lot of trouble. What
was that a narrative?
Yes, it was. Very much so. Very much so.
I'm learning.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank goodness we were just day to day.
What did you do, and Justin and Ryan and the players do to kind of get it together and not be a liability? It's schematically, mentally, whatever it might have been.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of it. When you now have different players, different personnel pieces in there, what do they do well and how do we actuate that? And then how do we kind of protect maybe what a weakness is on those guys, because you got two different guys in there. So, it wasn't at the same time with both those guys. So there was a transition there for a little bit when Jimmy went down and Donnie moved out and Carson jumped in at guard and Seth was still there, really kind of running the show, and I think kind of helped us weather that storm initially. And then when we lost Seth, bumping Carson in, and then starting to rotate the guards, it was a whole nother thing. So, kind of two separate things, but I think Justin deserves a ton of credit for what he did and how he worked with all those guys, and I think they got a really good understanding of what we're trying to get accomplished, and I think our job is, to try to put them in position to make plays and then let them go play, and I think they've done a really good job of that. So, that speaks to the depth of this team. We knew it was going to be tested when you play this many games, but the fact that we could weather that speaks to really how that whole old line and the cohesiveness of the entire group. So.
And finally, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Hey, can I ask just two fast Number one, following up on that, Justin Fry told me that one of the things that stood out to him was the way Will stepped up in a leadership way with the offensive line when Seth went down. You were out there on the practice field or wherever it happened and stuff, but what did you notice from that dynamic also of a quarterback literally taking ownership of a situation there and instead of hanging heads, going the opposite direction?
No, I think it's a good point. I think one of the things Will is conscious of, what's going on. He's very aware. And so not only did we lose a great player in Seth, we lost a great leader in Seth. So, there was a little bit of a vacuum from a leadership standpoint. And so Will did a great job. And I think between Will and Donnie, those are the two real leaders, those guys up front, and bringing those other guys along with them. So that was evident to us after Seth went down, both Will and Donnie kind of stepping up and filling that void with losing Seth, because Seth was such a great leader for that group up front.
Yeah, he's a Remington Award winner too. The other thing, like Tony Gerdeman asked you this a while ago, but I wanted to follow up on this aspect of it. What is it like as a offensive coordinator to be going into the last game of the year and all of your weapons are available to you, it appears, and your offensive line has found itself over the last 4 games? What is that feeling like as you sit there in your office and look at your playbook, your pad, or your computer, whatever you have your plays on, et cetera? Do you feel like the whole world's open to you? Create. I mean, what is that sense?
You do, until you turn the tape on and look at their defense and say, I don't know if that play is going to work against them. I don't know if that play is going to work against them, just because of how good they are defensively. That's the one thing in our week of preparation and going into it is just, how much respect we have for Notre Dame's defense and what they can do and what they've done against everybody they've played. You watch those guys play as a fan of football, you just kind of admire how cohesive that entire group is, and then how hard that group plays. So credit to Marcus and Al for what how those guys got those guys playing right now.
But the last 2 games, y'all seem to have had an answer. I mean, if people do take this away from you, you've got that. I mean, do you feel like you've got that going into you understand what I'm saying?
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I don't know any coach that ever feels like that. I don't think there's any coach 6 days before the national championship that thinks, I got this. That's, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Well, not everybody has a Jeremiah Smith, a Carnell Tate, and a Emeka Egbuka, for example.
I know, and we're really, really, really happy that we have them. But we also have great respect for who we're going against, and it's going to be a battle. And I think that's the great part of it. You have the 2 best teams in football playing against each other. And it wasn't voted on that these 2 teams play. It was earned by both teams. So, it's an opportunity to go against Marcus and Allen, what they're going to put out there defensively, and then those players. You watch Cross and Kaiser and Watson, the rest of that group play. As a fan, I admire how hard that group plays on defense. So, and if you're a competitor, that's what you want to play against. You really want to. Do you get an opportunity to play against the best? So we played 2 SEC teams and got an opportunity to beat them. We played the number 1 team in the country and we beat them. So now this is the next challenge, and the next challenge is an outstanding Notre Dame team, and we're excited about the opportunity to go play it.